Good evening, everyone. This isn't your typical live stream that you would catch from me on Friday nights. Currently, it's July 8th, 10:30 p.m. Pacific time. On this day, 1 year ago, the equivalent of my wife, Carol Lorraine Brown, passed away right next to me at roughly 10:30 in the morning. It was a typical Saturday morning. We were lying in bed together eating chips. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She said, "Oh, I feel lightheaded all of a sudden." And then shortly after, she started coughing and gurgling. Shortly thereafter, I called 911, and the paramedics tried reviving her for over an hour. But she did not come back. Carol Lorraine Brown was a native. She came from Gitskluka. I am not sure if that's the band name or the village, but they're 15 minutes outside of New Hazelton in British Columbia, Canada. She moved down to Vancouver many years ago, and she went through many troubles and many hardships. My name is Christopher Andrews, and I was lucky enough and privileged enough to be with her for the last 7 to 8 years of her life. We shared many an adventure, and even though we don't biologically share children, we shared 6 between us both. Miguel, Johnny, Charlotte, Lucy, Stanley, and Romelia. We all miss her, all her friends and family. She was one of the people, if you've ever heard of the day schools, she was part of those. And she had told me about a time where they had thrown her in the trash, and another time where they had locked her in the bathroom. She'd also told me about racism that had been pushed towards her when she tried moving down here. How bus drivers were pointing out liquor stores purposely because she was on that bus. I don't think any of that is right at all. And I sure as the hell did not like any of the crap that she went through in her life. Even though she went through those hardships and all the strife, she still managed to have a smile on her face. And she managed to bring others happiness. Not just me, but many people. Whether it be just a Facebook pickup or drop off, courtesy call to a family member, or just a family picnic or outing. I'm about to play a video, and this video was played at her memorial service. And I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys learn a little bit of the woman that I loved.
Remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me.
Thank you, kiddo.
Down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hey-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh. Hey-lo, hey, hey-be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, hey-be-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh, hey, hey-oh, remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be.
Come here, give me a hug.
Soaring with
Give me a hug.
the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me.
Let's try a memory for you.
Remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free.
And would you like to join us back down on the floor so we can all be together?
I need to be able to pause the video at the end, that way it doesn't play another song.
Okay.
I have not seen this video since the memorial.
I'll go join the others back down on the floor. Brea, keep our friend here company, okay?
Okay.
Remember me, when the sun comes up in the morning sky, there I will be, soaring with the eagle so high, feeling free. Remember me, down the road, hand in hand, you and me. Hi-oh, hey-oh, hey-oh.
I'm hoping the
Right
damn
on.
stop worked. Come on back down. You'll have to excuse me, I haven't seen that video since the Memorial Day. As you can see, she was family oriented. She tried her best to take care of her family, no matter who it was in her family. Her daughters, her sons, her significant others, whoever they were at the time. We had quite the adventures in the time we were together. This is basically my station wagon. This was one of the cars that kind of made a big impact on our family. It seated us all, but we also had a tragic day in it. There was a day that we were going to pick up Carol's daughters, Charlotte and Lucy, and somebody had run a red light. I was driving at the time, and I had nowhere else to go but to lock the brakes up and tell everybody to brace. I hit the Jeep, and Carol was in the passenger seat, and unfortunately hit right about here, either the window or the window pillar. I know it's hard to see from a distance, but basically, she got a concussion from that. And her attitude changed. And I know, and all of us know, it wasn't her fault. And she used to tell me that the accident wasn't my fault. There's still a voice in my head that says I should have slowed down a bit, even though we did have the green light. But she never blamed me for that accident. From that point on, she used to do a lot of the driving. But not in this car. She had a 2006 Toyota Matrix. And we had many adventures in that car, even if all of us didn't fully fit. There were times we'd have to take two cars, and we went to places like Logan Lake, Bridal Falls, even just some strange back roads, just for a drive. She was a person that didn't so much put her health first, but everybody else's health before hers. There was food in the house, she'd make sure the kids ate, and even me, before she ate. Because of all the stuff that had happened in her life, she had that mentality that she wasn't really worth much. and that she just had to make sure everybody else was better. But she never used sorrow or pity for anything. She just fought through everything. The one and only time I got to go up to her village. It was spontaneous. It was a long weekend. We were working at the same company. And we went up. And this is during Lytton, the town of Lytton, being on fire a few years ago. We went up, and I remember she was upset because COVID restrictions had just started easing off, and everybody, for lack of better terms, screwed off to a soccer game that day, or that weekend. So she didn't exactly get to see everybody that she wanted to see up there. But she did get to see a few people. One she called Brother Clifford, which, a year before her passing, she went up with Charlotte to go say her last goodbyes to him, as he had throat cancer. There were nights that when the kids were in bed, and I must make this clear, we never lived together. I live in Langley, she lived in Surrey. But her older son kept an eye on her youngest son, and my daughter was in bed, and my parents lived with me. In a way, I'm a single father, but there was someone watching the kids, and she'd swing by, and she'd grab me, and we'd go out for gas late at night. And I remember, this is one funny story. We stopped at a 7-Eleven, and I was really tired. It was 11:30 at night. And we were grabbing snacks and drinks, and I went walking by this rack, and I stopped, and I misread a bag of cookies. I actually had to reread it, and because of how tired I was, I just started laughing my ass off. Because what I thought I read, well, what the package actually said was cookie minis. But what I thought I read was Dookie Mints. So in a giggling fit, I went and found her. And she looked at me with kind of a puzzled look on her face, like, why the hell are you giggling? So I took her over to the rack, and I showed her. And I told her what I thought it said. And I started howling in the store, and she smiled and looked at me and said, "You're fucking nuts." And then when we went out to the parking lot, she phoned my dad. And she got me to explain it to him, and I howled so loud that night that I could hear my echo through the buildings. And she's just sitting there smiling away at this deranged, overtired moron sitting in her passenger seat. One of the last times I went with her for gas, she was only going to put a few dollars in because that's all she had. And I remember getting out of the car and whizzing around to the pump before she even managed to turn to start getting out. And I started pushing the buttons and doing stuff on the pump. And she looked at me, and I told her, I told you, hon, I'm here for you. I told you you're not alone anymore. That if you need help, no matter what, I will try and help. And with the starting look of defeat on her face, she walked over and said thank you, and I just gave her a big hug, and I told her, I love you, hon. She worked in an auto parts store. That's where I met her. And she was the heavy lifter and slowly turned into everything at that store. She could do deliveries. She could do returns. She could do counter. She could do what was called the town run, going and getting the parts. But most of all, she was the heavy lifter. Parts that people complained they couldn't lift. She'd walk over and be like, "What's your problem?" Well, the problem was she pushed that job so hard, she wore herself down. The cause of her death was a heart attack from an enlarged heart. Something we had no knowledge of. All I knew was that she had just recently found out she had high blood pressure, and she was just finally going to start taking medication for it. But she never got the chance to. As I said, she never really kept an eye on her health. There was 2 times that I had to take her to the hospital and wait there with her. Otherwise, she would have just left and ignored the pain. The first was for her gallbladder. And the second was for a UTI that had gotten very serious. She pushed herself so much that when she got home, she was barely able to move near the end. And at least how I feel is that her pushing herself that much pushed her heart too much. Even though she was in pain most days. If somebody needed help, she'd get up and she'd fight that pain and she'd go and she'd help no matter what. She saved me from a toxic relationship. One that was full of arguments, misunderstandings, and pain. I was actually beaten in that relationship. One of the times with my child present in the car while I'm driving. And my daughter still remembers that to this day. My daughter still knows her biological mother, but she still misses Carol. As she puts her, Mama Carol. We all miss her. I wish like hell there would have been something I could have done to keep her on this plane. There was one thing that's always stayed in my mind that she told me. She told me once. And that she said, she finds that she enters people's lives for a purpose. And when she's no longer needed, she's no longer there. I saw a lot of what she meant. I don't know if the spirits decided that she was no longer needed on this plane, or that her family wanted her to come home. At the end of this month, she will be taken up and buried in her village with her family. That is what their tradition is. And that is what's going to happen. Anybody who has a significant other, do me a favor. Make sure they keep an eye on their health. Whether they get a bit annoyed at you for it, or if they want to be stubborn, like she was. Keep an eye on your health. And keep an eye on theirs. Because you never know when your last day will be. The image of that day and those last words, "Oh, I feel lightheaded all of a sudden," will forever be burned into my memory. I will never forget that day. Just like I will never forget the day of our first kiss, or even where it was. Everybody's life, everybody's individual lives may stop when a tragedy happens. But the world never stops. The world around you keeps going. I still feel my pain. But I had to learn to keep going without her. And in a way, I'm not without her. She will always be with me spiritually. I love and miss you, Carol Lorraine Brown. Born May 2nd, 1977. Passed away July 8th, 2023. For those of you that knew her, don't ever forget her. I know I won't. And for those who have only just met her through this, live your lives in her honor. Don't just stop. Thank you, everybody who showed up. Everybody who logged into the stream. This is not about me. This is about a wonderful soul that's now back with her family to love once again. Family and friends, one and all. Please take care. Good night.